Wendy Forsythe, the CMO of eXp Realty, has spent 30 years proving that belonging is the ultimate business strategy. She founded a brokerage at 26 years old, and inside of eXp, she's helping build something that this industry has never seen before. Community infrastructure, not as a checkbox or a perk. And what we're building at eXp is rewriting the playbook. Wendy, welcome to Built to Belong. I'm so excited to dive into it today.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Cameron.
So take me back. 1994, you founded your first brokerage at 26. Huge accomplishment for someone so early on in your career in that season of life. Can you tell me, what did belonging mean to you at scale back then? Like, what called you to be in that leadership position? And what did you have to overcome to claim it?
Well, it wasn't as you're so dramatic when you describe it. It honestly wasn't that dramatic at the time. So I got my real estate license when I was in college. I was in my second year of college, and my dad encouraged me to get my real estate license. I was studying to get my business degree. And my dad said, if you want to be a business person, you should learn how to be a salesperson, because anyone in business has to learn how to sell. And it just so happened he had an ulterior motive, because my dad is a new home builder and he was opening up a development that spring, and he wasn't happy with his real estate agents, which, most builders always have complaints about their real estate agents. So he thought, okay, well, if I can get my daughter to get licensed, she'll sit at my spec house that he had built, his sales home, and, sit open houses all summer long. And his pitch to me was, Wendy, if you just sell one house during the summer, you'll make more money on that commission than you would working a part-time job at the mall, in a retail store, the typical thing that, a college-aged, girl would do at that time. You would earn more money. So I was able to go challenge the real estate course. This was the early 1990s, and get my real estate license. So that's how I started selling real estate. So I sat open houses in that spec house that entire summer, and learned how to sell real estate, and learned how to take listings, because people that would come into the new construction, the new build, oftentimes had a home to sell. So I learned how to take listings, sell them homes. Sometimes people that ended up not wanting a new home built, but they wanted to go buy another house. I learned how to call expireds. I learned how to call FSBOs. I went back to school in the fall, but I kept selling real estate. So I finished my degree 2 years later and kept selling real estate. And then started managing the real estate office, because I became the top salesperson in the
Over 100 homes, right?
yeah, over 100 listings. Yes. So yes. And then a couple of years later, had the opportunity to buy the real estate office that I was working at, which was, the company was a multi-office company, and I was instead of a sub office, and they wanted to sell off that sub office. So took that opportunity, and that's how I became a broker at such a young age. And at that time, I was the youngest broker in the province. I started my career in Canada. So in the province of Nova Scotia, I was the youngest person to have a broker's license at that time. And you had to have your salesperson's license for 2 years before you could get your broker's license. So it really was not planned. It happened just through hard work and opportunity. But I didn't really think a lot about belonging, or that I was a female at such a young age. I certainly experienced a lot of things in those moments, and certainly looking back, of being treated differently because I was a young female. But I just kept pushing through. I didn't want to be labeled as female, as different. I just wanted to help people find homes. I just wanted to build my career. It's with perspective that you sort of look back and say, like, dang, that just wasn't right.
Did you ever have a moment where, looking back, you almost talked yourself out of it?
I had lots of moments of frustration. For example, in building my brokerage business, I knew that I had to hire agents to grow the business. And I knew that the 55-year-old agent in my market wasn't going to come work for the female broker in their mid 20s. So I started training and teaching people pre-licensing in exchange for them joining my brokerage. Then I would teach them how to get their first sale and how to become productive. So that became a way of me doing something different than any of the other brokerages in my market in order to build my business. So I became known as the brokerage for new agents. Now, that had its own challenge, but it was how I had to build my business because I wasn't able to recruit the experienced, productive agents.
Mm.
So I just had to find a way to do things in a different way.
Right, right. And it was a natural succession for you that I'm feeling here. Like you were naturally called to take the reins on that because you knew you building your own table was going to be far better than, trying to conform and fit at someone else's table. And you're, what, 18 years as an executive background? You've led across multiple large brands. Like, what's been your North Star? Across every role that you've played, every jersey that you've worn, what's been the North Star for you on belonging?
I think it's very much blueprinted in the story that I just shared,
Hmm.
is that there is no table. You've got to build your own.
Hmm.
So I've always considered myself an underdog. I've always been an underdog. And that feeling and that experience helps me relate to other people, and it helps me want to help other people. So whether that was in starting my own brokerage and recognizing that really a survival strategy in growing my own business was finding a way to help other new agents get into the industry and then become successful.
Mhm.
So there was a win-win there in that. Or as I started my corporate career, finding a path and finding opportunities that really were not the norm. Almost every role I've taken in my corporate life has been a role that's been created for me.
Mm.
So they've been new roles in organizations versus roles that I'm taking a role of someone else. And th- even when I have taken a role that somebody else sat in the seat before me, the role may have had the same title, but it's been a substantially different role. So it's been molded very differently. And I think that is because of belonging and because of seeing opportunities and building tables that allow for my skill set and where I see opportunities to shine. And as I've matured in my career, I think I have been a lot more vocal
Mm.
in saying, here's where there are opportunities. And that's something I encourage people to do, especially women,
Yeah.
because the table wasn't built for us.
No, no. And what I love is you constantly champion others. And I think like a true leader stands behind people. And I always see you being the bridge to propelling a new connection, a new relationship forward. And what I love is how real you are and how vulnerable you've been about sharing, some of the things that you've been through in your career, because it hasn't been easy. And I've just knowing you and talking offline, like you've had to navigate some high stake moments across different careers, different jerseys you were wearing. How did you stay rooted in your identity when culture or, people were trying to conform you or make you shrink? Like how did you stay rooted in yourself and your authenticity going through so many different seasons and chapters and roles in your life?
It's not easy, and it's easy to get lost. It's easy to doubt yourself.
Yeah.
And I certainly have had a lot of those moments, and I still have those moments. I think that we all do. Imposter syndrome is a real thing, and it doesn't change. Like we see these versions of people, and we see these like fully baked versions of them, and we compare their chapter that they're showing up today with our chapter wherever we're at. And it's really hard not to say like, oh, how did she get there? Like recently somebody told me like, oh, you're so confident. And It just so happened that I was given that compliment um, after I had had a sort of an experience where like I went through a moment of really not feeling so confident about something.
Mhm.
So it's funny how like those like
The
internal and
perception.
external things can kind of happen.
Yeah.
So you really just have to push through that. And like we all have those like the monkey on our shoulder, right? That
Yeah.
like pushes you forward.
Yeah.
But in terms of the reflection and learning from that, I worked with an executive coach early on in my career, and she made such just an impression on me that I use the tools and the counsel that she gave me still to this day. And one of the things that she taught me early on is she said, when you're feeling unsure of yourself or unsure of how to behave in a situation, think about how you want to write the story and how you want to star in the story.
Mm, that's powerful.
That is so powerful.
Wow.
And I think about that often of when I'm going into maybe a challenging conversation. So maybe it's with an employee where I have to have a challenging conversation with somebody. Maybe it is with an agent where I have to have maybe a challenging conversation with that agent. Maybe it's a negotiation with a vendor that I'm going into. Maybe it's getting up on stage and doing a presentation. I think about the outcome, and then I think about like playing in my mind what I want that story, almost like watching a TV show, and how I want to appear and creating like my own version of that show. So almost like visualization of that. And that has been such a powerful technique to be able to use, is like we have the ability to really like write our own play script of like how we want situations to look. And our mind is a powerful tool. We just have to know how to use it.
Yeah. And you make a good point because life happens from us, not to us. And everything that comes to reality came from a seed of a thought. Like
Yes.
your thoughts literally change your body chemistry, your stress levels, your cortisol levels. Like when you envision yourself, your body is playing out what those emotions would feel like. Like your body doesn't know the difference between it actually happening and you thinking
Yes,
about it, which is insane. So I love that. It's a very powerful strategy.
it is.
And, we see a lot of agents that they work hard.
Mhm,
They're hustling, but they still feel empty inside.
mhm.
Can we peel back the curtain a little bit? Tell me what's going on there and what do you think that they need to hear?
It's part of the hustle culture,
Hmm.
right? And we get into the business and we think that it's going to allow us freedom, flexibility. We're going to be our own boss. We're going to be able to control our schedule. We have all these expectations of what a career in real estate is going to allow us to do. Unlimited financial, potential, all of these things. And then we get into the business and then we get inundated with the grind, the hustle, the do more, the all the things that erodes all of that excitement we had. And I describe it as like the rope pulling on two ends, and the rope starts to fray in the middle. And we start to lose that excitement. We start to lose ourselves in the middle of that. And that is where I think a lot of people start to lose the balance of their superpowers that made them special. And that's why we have such tremendous burnout in the industry. And and that, I mean, that's why I wrote the book, right? Leverage your X factor. And that's what I talk about, is how do you reclaim that superpower? How do you leverage your X factor? And how do you get that back?
And how does belonging, finding your people community fit into that framework? Like, can you find your X factor in isolation?
No, no, and that
Mm.
that is the third element of factor, right?
Yeah.
So focus, action, community is the third element of the six elements of the six-part framework. So community is a big part of that, and that's where the people you surround yourself. And one of the things I talk about in the book is that you need to do a community audit.
Mm.
Who are the people around you? You need to audit your community at every level in your career as you're leveling up in in your income, as you're leveling up in your mindset, you're going to need to have a different sort of community of people to help you level up. And if you're aspiring to change anything in your life, change the people around you.
Mm.
That will have a tremendous impact. So community is such an important part of that.
I say the same thing. I say, if you really want your life to change, find someone that needs it more and give, because I firmly believe in reciprocity. And what's extraordinary about the model that you've helped build and you facilitate here is it's an economic flywheel,
Mhm.
right? The more these agents put in, the more that they get out. And you had mentioned your book, Leverage Your X Factor. What I think is incredible is 100% of the proceeds go back to Extend a Hand.
Yeah.
That's not a marketing strategy.
No.
That is conviction.
Yeah.
So where does that come from for you?
I believe in giving back.
Mhm.
I believe in charity. I think that that is an important part of what we should all do. And I think particularly in our industry, we're not really good at saving for that rainy day.
No, we're
And
not.
I have seen agents over the course of my career that have not had a place to turn when the unexpected happens. And that is why we created Extend a Hand, is for our agents that haven't, planned for that hurricane, they haven't planned for that fire, they haven't planned for that medical emergency, they haven't planned for that financial like disaster, and they need a helping hand, and that's what Extend a Hand is here for.
Mm.
So in 2025, we gave out over 200 grants. So to be able to have the money to do that is an important part of what we are committed to. And this industry has provided so much for me. And I have met so many amazing people, and it's given me so much that I want to give back. And this is part of that.
That same conviction, you bring it in. It's not just Extend a Hand. You bring that same conviction inside of 1EXP, which brings me to talk about 1EXP and the Women's Impact Network, because
Mhm.
you champion both. Why does community infrastructure in a brokerage matter to you? Not just as a CMO, but as a person.
Mhm. Belonging matters to me.
Yeah.
So, belonging matters to me because I believe that everybody should feel like they belong.
Mm.
And to me, this is deeply rooted from my childhood,
Yeah.
where I grew up not feeling like I belonged. So, I know what that feels like. And I never want anybody to feel like they don't belong in a room, in a conference room, in any sort of environment. And especially in our company here at EXP. When people come to a conference, when people come to an event, when people come to a training, when they come to a webinar, whatever it is, I want them to feel like they belong.
Mm.
And our resource groups within 1EXP, the members of those groups, because they are different, are so vulnerable to feeling like they don't belong in their everyday life. When you combine that with trying to excel then in building their businesses, that can be particularly challenging.
Very. Yeah.
So I want to make sure that we're providing a community for them to know that there is support for them where they can belong. And not only do they belong, they are invited to the table and they're welcome to the table, and we're going to help them build their business.
Mm, that's powerful. And you're so right. Like belonging is woven into the infrastructure of EXP. And one of the things that I hear you talk about a lot is that we don't just do macro culture at EXP, where most companies just do macro and
Yes.
expect everyone to find some kind of place in there.
Yeah.
You understood the power of subcultures
Yes.
built for agents by agents so that they have a hand in creating what culture is. And your statistics, the data behind your career have proven it back at 98% retention at one of the other brokerages prior to EXP. How do you make that case intentionally for the people that are still holding on to purse strings?
people talk about what is culture, and sometimes I get asked that at a macro level about, like, tell me about EXP's culture. And there is a culture a company can have at a macro level and does have at a macro level. But within any sort of organization, there are, I call them micro cultures. So there's going to be a culture of EXP, maybe that we have as employees of EXP that we experience. But if you're an agent out in the field of EXP, you're experiencing a completely different culture than we as employees would experience. We have revenue share groups within EXP that have their own cultures. We have team leaders and teams within EXP that have their own cultures. We have one EXP resource groups. YP, Young Professionals, has a culture. EXP Latino has a culture within it. EXP Pride has a culture within it. So there's all these micro cultures. All of those micro cultures combined are what make EXP's culture. And that is what makes it so special, is the combination of all of that is our culture, is that shared experience that people have with us. It's not just one thing, it's a combination of all of those things. And when we are at events and we're recording this at an event, we walk around and so many people tell us, I love EXP's culture. And it's because they are having multiple experiences, not just one experience. They're having hundreds of experiences of touch points that are impacting what for them is culture, because culture is a unique experience for each person and means something different, but it has to be accumulation of a number of different experiences.
Every time I hear you talk about this, it lights me up inside of me. It's such a good answer. Yeah, 100%. Like, that is the founding basis for agent experience. People join people, they don't join companies.
Right.
And I guarantee you, half the agents can't list out all the EXP features, but I can guarantee you they know exactly their tribe and how they make, like, they remember
How they
people
make you feel is what you were just going to
Yes,
say. That's right.
exactly.
And all of those experiences are how we make them feel. And that's what we spend our time obsessing over, is how we make our agents feel. How does our culture make our agents feel? And it's all of those touch points is how we make you feel. And that's belonging. That's the core of belonging, is how do we feel? If we feel good, we feel like we belong, we feel like there's a place at the table for us, that's when culture is in alignment.
Yeah, and it's the basis to retention, it's the basis to agent production,
Right.
their sense of belonging, their sense of purpose.
Right.
So, and it ties back, because everything you just said makes that business case. But I want to shift, because underneath all of this is a woman who has been holding rooms for over 30 years that weren't built for her. What do you want younger women who are watching this to know?
I want them to know that I think you've said it and you hear me say it often. The rooms are not built for you. And what I mean for that is that we have inherited decades, centuries of a hierarchy that is not built for female leaders. And despite the fact that we have seen more and more female leaders come into high-level roles, we are not seeing them escalate to the highest levels of leadership. And that is because of a number of different reasons, and there are the data to, back this up. One of the things that we're seeing happen because of that is that we're seeing more companies being founded by females, because in the corporate side of the world, we're not sort of breaking through those glass ceilings. We're not seeing those, like, high-level CEO roles being gained by women. In our particular industry as real estate, licensees are held by north of 60% are held by females. Yet we don't see, when you look at the C-level roles of the major brands being held by women, MLS roles, brand roles, you don't see that sort of breakthrough. And that is, because of the lack of change that is had. So what I advise to women who are aspiring to climb that ladder is, first off, is that what you really want to do?
Mm.
And if it is, you're going to have to be bold,
Yeah.
and you're going to have to find sponsorship. And what I mean by that is a sponsor is somebody who's going to need to advocate for you. And you're going to need multiple advocates, men and women. And advocates are going to be people who are going to have to go to bat for you.
Mm.
These are going to have to be people to say, Cameron deserves this opportunity. You need to give Cameron this opportunity. Because if you don't have sponsors who are willing to do that for you, you're not going to be able to reach where you want to go.
Mm.
So sponsorship is an important part of how we change the data around opportunities for women. So I'm a big advocate of sponsorship, and I think that's how we really change a lot of the data that's out there.
I love that you mentioned sponsorships because that is not spoken enough, and that's one of the concepts that you enlightened me on and what sponsorship meant, the difference between mentorship and sponsorship.
Mhm.
You know, a mentor pours into your knowledge, but the sponsor puts your name in rooms that you haven't stepped into,
And puts you in rooms.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which is powerful. It connects to where I want to land this. You're 30 years in. What does belonging mean to you now?
He said, "So don't say that. It made me feel old."
You
We just say you've been
Listen.
doing this a while.
Wendy, you have been doing this a while.
That's better.
Can you tell me, like, after all of the hats that you've worn and the experiences you've had, what does belonging mean to you now at scale versus what it meant to you when you were 26 and founding your first brokerage?
I think now belonging for me is all about finding opportunities. And we were just talking about sponsorship and sponsorship. That is where I just get so much joy and energy, is to be able to reach back and pull up and bring along and find opportunities, for other people.
Yeah.
And find belonging and create belonging. When I think about being in my 20s and starting out, I didn't have those concepts. I didn't have those tools. I didn't know. I was a hungry, ambitious realtor trying to grow a business. And I cared a lot about people. I got my heart broken time and time again. And I remember on the big first week of January, my top 2 agents that I had hired and helped them get their license and trained and poured into these people. They were a husband, wife. They came in and left, cleared their desk out over the holidays and left my brokerage and went to another brokerage. And they represented a significant amount of production in my business and cleared out. I was heartbroken.
Yeah.
So back in those early days, I was just learning through the bumps and the bruises of everything as I was trying to scale a business and learn a business.
Yeah.
But those are the things that you go through. You
Right.
pour your heart into people, and you get you get hurt along the way, and I still do that
Yeah.
today. But it's worth it. It's worth it to do that and to pour your heart into people.
Yeah.
I'll never regret doing that.
It's rooted in such a deep purpose and commitment to making a better place for not just EXP, but for humanity. This is an international brokerage. And so I see it in the work that you do. I see it in the way that you give back to people. And the data, like I said, speaks for itself. You know what I mean? There's no one that I know that could speak better to belonging and culture just because of just your vulnerability and your experience. And it's just powerful because people at your level, we mostly see the polished version of them. We don't see the things that they had gone through that brought them to where they are. There's a lot of agents that have been through things that maybe they've kept aside because they don't.
We've all been through stuff.
Yes, yes, 100%. It's the way that you leveraged it as your superpower and your differentiator and your why, because you knew what it felt like. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to create this so that I can impact the next future generation of leaders who will never have to experience this because I'm in the shoes now, who gets to determine that. So I want to close this off. This is a question I've wanted to ask you since I scheduled this call. We've talked about it. You've built brands, you've built teams, networks, and now you just released a book, all centered around people finding their place in their purpose. In your own words, what does it actually mean to build something people belong to? And what's the one thing you want every agent listening to walk away with and do differently after this conversation?
I would want people to sponsor other people.
Mm.
That would be what I would want them to do, is when you are interacting with other people, when you see other people that you can help sponsor, do that for them.
Mm.
Like, that's what the world needs. That's what your community needs. And you may think, how can I do that? I'm not a C-suite executive. I'm not a top producing realtor. I'm not a this, I'm not a that. You don't need to be any of those things. You can sponsor other people in your life. There are people who need your sponsorship. Just figure out a way to do that.
Yeah, yeah. You get to decide you're someone worth following. You don't need the external validation or the credibility that they feel that they have. We know a lot of times we see agents that they say, "Oh, I don't feel like I've sold enough homes to be a sponsor, to be someone worth following." You and I both know a realtor who sold 100 homes who's got an awful personality. You do not need to be a top producer to be your it factor, your X factor. Like you said,
Yeah.
just be the sponsor, create the opportunities for people.
Yes.
And the law of reciprocity, it will come back in ways better than you could have ever imagined.
Yeah, it could be just like introducing someone to someone else and saying, you need to know this person, you're doing this, and this person can help you with that.
Yeah.
You might just make that introduction and say, this person is somebody that can do this for you.
Yes.
Like that is sponsorship. So just do that.
Yeah.
Right?
That's awesome. Wendy, thank you so much for coming on here today. This is an amazing conversation. I can't wait for the more that we're going to build together and how we're going to rewrite the industry.
Thank you so much. It's been so great talking with you. And thank you for everything that you're doing in your leadership. I'm so excited to work with you.
Thank you. Thank you.